Welcome to QS Waves, your essential podcast for navigating the dynamic legal sector. Welcome to our webinar on building a strong brand identity. I am Damien Reed, Head of Marketing at Quality Solicitors, and today we explore how to create a brand that resonates with clients by focusing on developing a visual identity, crafting clear and effective messaging, and ensuring consistency across all touchpoints. We were planning to have some polls, but I'll ask these questions, I suppose, to the audience as we're going through. But also, if you're listening or watching later on, you can also post away or comment if the platform allows when you're watching it on demand. Moving swiftly on, we have a fantastic team with us today to share their insights. So, Lois, let's start with you.
Yes, thanks, Damien. Hi, everyone. I'm Lois, Marketing Accounts Manager at QS, and I specialize in developing and implementing strategies across our member firms.
Fantastic. Scott.
Hello, I'm Scott. I'm another Marketing Account Manager here at QS. My expertise is in copywriting, content creation, specifically in communications, and creating marketing campaigns.
And finally, but not least, Luke.
Thank you very much. So my name's Luke. I'm the Senior Graphic Designer for Quality Solicitors. And my job is to essentially design all the marketing collateral for our partner firms and QS head office, whether that be sort of banners, leaflets, posters, video, social assets, you name it. I do it. Design it.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. We have a great team with us today for this webinar. As the title suggests, we are talking about building a strong brand identity. So let's dive into some key insights. First up, Luke, how can a law firm create a visually compelling brand identity?
Thanks, Aaron. So first of all, visuals are really important because they help the customer to remember your company, your firm, and they will use those visuals to take certain elements from it. So, for example, when you think about Apple, you think very much about the Apple logo. So, it's elements like that are important. There are other sort of building blocks, though, as well as the icon. There's the logos, icons, typefaces, and colors, and they're the building blocks of your brand design. But when you're coming up with those, there's a few important rules to follow and to consider. And the first one is to be authentic and unique, which brings you on to number 2, which is research the competition. So, you want to stand out from the crowd. You don't want to just look exactly the same as your competitor, because when a potential client is looking at a few different law firms in a particular area, if you all look the same, it's going to be very difficult to pick between the two. So you want someone that's going to stand out and actually go, oh, and again, I remember these guys because they looked different. I'm going to check these guys out. With that, for me, one of the biggest things is less is more. Don't try and just bombard and sort of over-inform the customer. Use your customer journey. Think about, the progression that they'll make. So, for example, on a leaflet, you want to keep it quite concise, and then use the kind of info dump for the website. And then, most importantly, be consistent. Your look needs to be the same across multiple platforms, whether that be social media, obviously your website, any sort of printed collateral as well. It needs to look the same throughout. Again, that reinforces that remembrance of your firm. Fantastic.
Thank you, Luke. I completely agree on a lot of your touch points there, or all of them. You're absolutely right. You have to be consistent across all platforms. Clients do a lot of research these days, and they visit your website, they look at you up on Google My Business, they look on social media, and you need to have that consistency and visually across all platforms, so they can instantly recognize you as a brand, as a firm. It would be weird if you were to go on to, for instance, Facebook, and the logo hadn't been updated for a few years, and maybe you use an old logo or an old color scheme, it just looked very strange. And it looked like you don't care about that particular platform. So yeah, some really good points. Thank you, Luke. Lois, we're going to move on to you next. What role does social media and websites play in branding?
Yes, so a firm's online presence, like social media, websites, is essential for building a brand, because your social media platforms or pages or accounts and your websites, they are, important ways in which you can communicate your values, your firm's mission, your unique selling points, what makes you different from the competition. Like Luke said, you do have to stand out from, your competitors. You have to be different, you have to be unique. And how can you display all of those things, your unique selling point, your values, your mission, your services, what you have to offer, aside from being online, having social media presence, having a really good website. Those are ways that help you display all of those things. So those platforms are key platforms where your potential clients can interact with your firm. By going to your website, they can interact with your services, your pages, visit different pages, see what services you have to offer. By checking out your social media pages, they also get to interact with, your page, the likes, the comments, different things, just that kind of exchange of communication and information. Having online presence is just the way to go, with building your brand in that way. Another thing I want to point out with websites is your website basically offers a centralized focus for providing detailed information about your services. For example, you can have things like client testimonials on there. And also it's a way to kind of show your firm's professionalism through your design, your content. Everything on your website basically goes towards showing how professional you are as a firm. Things like even your logo, the kind of displays you have on there, the kind of content you have on there, those things are key to truly building your brand very well. And also, social media platform is a very good way of encouraging that ongoing engagement with your audience. It allows firms to share things like updates, thought leadership content, even things like, behind the scenes that will make your firm, seem more relatable, more approachable. Your social media platforms are very, very good ways to go about that. So a combination of those two things, social media and your websites are extremely important to building that very strong brand presence. And one quick thing to also add to that is that when people find you on those platforms, obviously people find you through different ways, by maybe searching for the name of your law firm, searching for keywords that will lead them to your website, your social media pages. It's not just about finding you, but also keeping them hooked and keeping them wanting to know more about your brand is very, very important as well. What happens after they find you? You shouldn't just end at them finding you. You should also be able to keep them interested in wanting to continue that journey and wanting to know more about your firm as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. A firm's online presence, their website, or their social media is their virtual shop window, something that we've talked about many, many times. A lot of the firms that we talk with and interact with are based on the high street, and they put a lot of effort into ensuring that the visuals at the front of the office is enticing and it looks professional, and that same care needs to be put into both those into all those social media platforms and channels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you, Scott. We're going to move on to you now. So can you tell us how a firm can maintain a consistent tone of voice?
Of course. So yeah, I've worked on quite a few over my career, quite a few different sort of tone of voice guidelines. So it's something I'm quite passionate about. Yeah, I think it's very important to make sure that your sort of tone of voice is clear, professional, and making sure it's consistent across all written communications. I like to think of tone of voice as it's sort of, I guess, putting your best foot forward, really, in terms of how your firm presents itself and how you present yourself to your clients. I think it extends a bit further than just written communications. It's also, particularly for sort of client-facing staff, it's sort of how are they talking to your clients? Is that consistent with sort of the voice that comes across in your written communications as well? So I think it's making sure that it's consistent there. And I was just thinking about, I guess it's coming down to sort of your firm's identity, really. What is the impression you want to give to your clients? How do you want to come across as friendly or quirky, or most of the time you're going for professional and things like that, but so how does that manifest itself in communications? How can you position yourself in a way that sort of reassures your clients that you're professional and that you are that you're good to work with, that you can be approachable as well, particularly for something like conveyancing? You want to make sure that that your clients can ask questions, and if you're across with quite a sort of very, very formal tone of voice and quite sort of austere tone of voice, that might put them off. So I think it's encouraging a nice, positive, friendly, professional tone of voice is usually the ideal. But I think it's important to craft it for you for firms to sort of craft their own individual identity, like we sort of say, in terms of being unique and standing out. What makes your firm different? What particular quirks does your tone of voice have? Might be something to think about when you're sort of creating guidelines, and also how your staff can be consistent in that as well, and how you can basically everyone in the firm is basically being not like robots, but being sort of consistent with that tone of voice and making sure that everyone's sort of singing from the same hymn sheet, really.
Yeah, fantastic. That's fantastic. So we're talking about written content, whether that be a copy on your website. We're talking about blogs, articles, social media, with, as I said, written content, but also video, audio, and you're quite right as well. It's not just about marketing; it's also about the personal point, the personal touch of people in the office, whether they are, customer facing or whatever. If they have some kind of engagement with a client at some point along the journey, that consistency must be there throughout. Right, we're going to move on to a discussion point now. So, there's two areas I want to discuss, and this will cover everything that we've been discussing so far. These areas are basically around two campaigns. So currently, a lot of firms are promoting Free Wills Month, and this campaign presents an excellent opportunity to connect with clients on a personal level. So, what strategies should we consider when leveraging a campaign like this effectively? And that's open to you guys to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, one area I would definitely advise, law firms to put a focus on would be content. As we all know, content is king, right? You can't do anything in the world of marketing without content. So not just any content, but engaging content. And I break this down into sort of three parts. So for engaging content, we have storytelling, we have educational aspect of the content, like educational articles, blog posts, things like that, and also live content as well. I'll explain that further. So when it comes to storytelling, clients, either potential clients or even current clients, love storytelling. They want to know more about your brand. They want you to carry them along on a journey. They want your content to be passing a message to them. You want your content to be relatable, not just, random content that would have no impact on them. That's what clients want to see. So it could be different kinds of storytelling. You could go about it by sharing clients' testimonials, for example. That's a kind of storytelling. A client's testimonial, for example, takes them through sort of like a very compressed type of storytelling where the testimonial might say what the problem was, how your firm solved the problem, and then how the person would recommend your firm to other people. So that's kind of a story just in a very short, compressed form. So that engages people. People want to see how you've helped others that have been in similar situations to what they're currently going through. They want to see that. They want to be able to relate to that. So I always advise firms to incorporate that in their marketing. Also, when it comes to educational articles as well, this can be in form of blog posts, in form of content on your social media platforms. Inform people, tell people more about will planning, the advantages of estate planning, even things like Free Wills Month initiative, why they should key into that, why they should check that out on your website. Give them things like, did you know, if you do this, this will benefit you in the future, to benefit you 10 years down the line. Just information they might not have been aware about. People love learning new things, that would definitely be a plus in their lives. So that's another way to go about the educational aspect. And then when it comes to live content, you could do things like Q&A sessions. You can host that for your clients, where you talk about different things like estate planning, try to encourage that direct interaction and engagement with your clients. So those are the tips I have for that.
Yeah, I think with the storytelling, you've got to think about who is going to be interested in getting a will during the Free Wills Month, and that's 55 years and upwards. And you really probably got to put yourself in the shoes of those people and think, why at the age of 55 at least do you not have a will? And that could be financial reasons. That could be, it's expensive to get a will. It's expensive for some and not expensive for others, and that could be a stopper. So highlighting the fact that it is, whilst a simple will, it is free, is certainly something that you can help address that pain point. And also that education as well. That I can't remember the stat, and I'm going to say a number, but don't quote me on this. It's something ridiculous, like 60% of adults don't have a will or something like that. That's probably completely wrong, but it is a shocking stat. Remember, like when I did read it. So make sure you you share the right stats. But that is something that could be quite alarming. And also, I think with the storytelling as well, it doesn't necessarily have to be for the person it's intended for. It could also be for people who are influencers on that person. So whilst you might be marketing to 55 years and over, you might have their children who are adults going, you need to get a will. Because I don't want the government getting this out.
That's a very, very interesting point, actually. Yes.
But you could, maybe those shock numbers and stuff like that to not scare people, but to give them that fear of missing out. That could be potentially to the younger audience who could then influence the 55 and over. Scott, it sounded like you wanted to say something.
So I do want to interrupt, but I think I completely, I was just really actually massively in agreement bit on the sort of educational messaging. We're talking about these sort of, I guess, the myths that it's very expensive, that it's really complex to make a will, that it can be really time consuming. So there's also, if you're thinking about someone who's 55 for instead of having a will, they probably do have these sort of myths in their mind about why they haven't got around to getting a will, or they'll leave it to a later date or something, or all sorts of reasons we sort of justify to ourselves putting things off, which are quite relatable, I think, to many of us. But I think it's in terms of the storytelling that I was talking about, I think it's one way that you can utilize that is by having sort of educational messaging around sort of breaking down these myths and sort of saying, well, it's not expensive. Obviously, for Free Wills Month, if you're doing a simple will, it's completely obviously free. And obviously, in terms of complexity, that's something you can help break down. You can show them obviously how your will writing services work a little bit, how you can guide them through the process. And in terms of time consuming, you can just sort of show them how quickly it can be done. So that can be a good way to create content, something like a blog, for instance, about sort of breaking down those just 3 myths on will writing, for instance. And I think in terms of wills as well, I think it's always important to have. I think a lot with any marketing, I think it's very important to have. I think empathy goes a long way in terms of sort of putting yourself in the shoes of your clients, and I think emotional resonance and having some sort of emotional hook with some of the messaging can be quite key. And for something like wills, obviously, it's the importance of a will is making sure that after you're gone, the people that you leave behind are looked after. So I think it's asking that question: how will your loved ones be provided for after you're gone? Might be a way into it. You can sort of tap into the emotion, and that can be a way to break through the myths in terms of, well, like you may have these things in your head, but I think it's important to think about your family and your loved ones and making sure that and that your wishes are heard as well. For instance, like, and it's I think always important as well because people's lives change over the years. So like, although someone might technically be married, they might be separated, so that the will that they had in place before might not be as relevant as it was. And so I think it's important to make sure that the people are updating their wills, not just necessarily creating a new will, but making sure they're updated as well. So yeah, and I think in terms of creating those blog posts, that if you are creating new content and putting on the website and social media, you're then going to be ranking better in the sort of search terms that people are searching for when they're wanting to create a will. Like, how do I create a will? Will writers in my area or wherever they're searching for. If you've got regular and fresh content that's going on about these sort of topics, you're more likely to be top of the nearest to the top of their list. It will help make sure that these clients are finding you at the right times. And I think with something like Free Wills Month, people are engaging with that campaign, and they're probably more open to looking this up. If they're, I can get something for free, that's always good. So it's a time where there's quite a lot of traffic and quite a lot of people are searching for these things. So it's important that you have content that ranks quite highly on Google to make sure that digitally they can find you.
Absolutely. I mean, we in a previous episode, you and I spoke about how firms can appear at the top of the rankings through looking at, having a focus, having a niche. So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there. We've talked a lot about storytelling in this. Luke, how can a firm encapsulate that storytelling with visuals? I mean, are we talking fonts? Are we talking imagery? Are we talking colours? What sort of things can people or our listeners consider putting together to help get this storytelling across in the most impactful way?
Sure. So I think, first of all, that comes first, thinking about your approach to your design. So that's mainly around sort of colors and imagery. So for example, if it's a slightly sort of younger audience, so i.e., because I think the thing is, 55 and then 65, they're two very big age ranges. And I think that you're very much in very different stages of your life. If you're at 55, you might have a young family. You might have a family where, you might have children that are kind of teenagers and becoming adults. Whereas at 65, you're thinking about retirement and what that means. So I think there's a huge spectrum there. And I think that's where your sort of targeted, approachable design comes in. With your imagery, are you going to show images of families? Are you going to show images of more retirement? Are you thinking more, in terms of the kind of, the more images of where someone's passed away and those people are left behind? So it's thinking about your imagery and targeting to that audience that you want to. And that might be, so for example, if you're creating social posts, you might be wanting to hit each kind of age range with different photography and different messaging. So just so you kind of hit all those markers. With that in mind, when you think about colors, again, with a younger audience, you might be thinking of your more sort of vibrant side of your branding color palette. Whereas, for someone that's slightly older, you might be thinking sort of the kind of softer colors of your branding color palette as well. And I just want to talk about, again, sort of the brand essence, how. Yeah. That kind of your soul, how you feel about your brand. You want to make it so that, trust. I think trust is the most important thing when it comes to a will. You want to make sure, you want to be able to trust that that firm to make sure that your wishes happen. And again, that comes with trust. That comes with that brand essence. How. So, for example, you could say, for example, like something completely different, like Pepsi or Cola. You've got that. Some people will only drink Coca-Cola. Some people will only drink Pepsi. And yes, there is a taste element to that, but there's also a massive sort of branding there. You think, or banks, you think, right, well, I'm only going to ever stick with that bank. It's that brand loyalty. And again, when you're thinking about Wills, it's, getting them to trust your brand, be loyal to your brand, because then it's not just Wills. Obviously, I know we're talking about Wills, but then anything else that pops up in life, you'll think about that firm in the future.
Yeah, I think that consistency is key. It creates that authenticity, doesn't it? That you don't want a firm utilizing a logo and changing it every other social post or whatever. You want it to be the same every time, because it helps instill that emotional trust in somebody. Completely agree with everything you guys have said. We're going to move on to another type of campaign. Now, yes, we're still in October, but I'm gonna shoot us forward into 2025 and talk about what we can do in January, because in January, many firms start to focus on conveyancing again. So as we enter the new year, this is a prime time to capture interest. So again, this is an open question to all three of you. What should firms consider when approaching this type of campaign?
So from my point of view, obviously from the sort of design point of view, it harkens back to what we talk about. It's consistency, consistency, and it's and that comes from imagery, messaging, and then your connection and your emotion. So I think, moving house, it is a very emotional thing to go through, isn't it? I mean, and you don't want to, obviously you've got two options really. You can kind of move into that kind of emotional of how happy it can be, and you want to maybe build on that kind of that exciting and all those positive emotions that come with moving house. Or you can maybe go with the other side, which is, oh my God, moving house is really, really stressful. However, let us lighten the load. Let us help with that burden that you're feeling. So those are the kind of two ways that you can go with. And, and like I said, that comes from your messaging and your imagery as well.
I think that's really key, Luke. I think it's balancing those two competing emotions. It's sort of the excitement, but also the sort of slight trepidation in terms of sort of I hope it all goes well. And I think it's sort of balancing that excitement and then, but also building trust in your firm. You want to sort of project that you are the firm to help with that conveyancing journey. You're the firm that will help smoothly move them into that house and basically fulfill that excitement, because as much as moving home is such a key moment in your clients' lives, so you want to make sure that you can be trusted to deliver on that promise, really, in terms of getting them to their dream home. I think for me, in terms of a way to build trust, but also hopefully feel that sense of excitement, I think client testimonials and case studies are a really key way to show that, because I think it's like Lois mentioned earlier. Essentially, you've got people who are like your clients, or who are your clients. But if you're thinking from a new client's perspective, you're seeing someone who is like them in the same situation that they were maybe just 2 months on, who is basically saying, I had a great experience with this firm. We got over the line. They were really communicative and really sort of helped me get into my new place and made the whole process really smooth. That something incorporating those sort of messages and showing sort of real life social proof, essentially, that obviously that you are a trusted firm that can deliver and help give them a smooth conveyancing journey and make sure that they are that basically you're getting into the places they want to be is great. And I think it's also sort of thinking about who are you focusing on in this campaign? Are you focusing on first-time buyers? Are you focusing on people who are doing a second or third move, or people who are downsizing, people who are selling their home and maybe not moving, but just sort of selling a second property? There's ways you can go about with. I think you can have client testimonials to cover each and every one of those scenarios. So I think they're a really key thing you can incorporate into this hypothetical campaign we're talking about.
Yeah, you're quite right when you have to think about who you're marketing to, and you have to think of, there's all sorts of things to consider, like even for instance geographically, because you might be based in an affluent area and there are no first time buyers. So yeah, you've really got to think about not just we're trying to get as many clients in as possible on all different types of ways, but you have to also think about who actually is your client base. And then with that when we keep talking about trust through consistency, you might get your veteran mover who's on the 6th or 7th house move, and they want that trust and consistency, but they know what they're doing. But you then want that same messaging for your first time buyers who don't know how anything's happening, how anything's going on. Yeah. They don't know the terminology, they don't know the process, don't know how long things take. So I think, as Lois mentioned earlier, you need to have things like guides and blogs to educate these people, and whilst you have that, be consistent across all channels and socials and etc. with your branding.
I think it's reassuring that there's a process, there's a step, there's a way forward as well. Because I remember when I was first sort of going through the conveyancing journey, it was just like, well, what is happening? Like, there's so many plates spinning and what's going on. So having that broken down into a journey can always be helpful for this sort of thing. So that might be content that you can create. In terms of blog posts, guides, you can create leaflets, you can create social media assets, breaking that down, maybe in some lovely graphic that Luke has designed, potentially, but just ways to illustrate things in different ways. And particularly if you, as we're doing this in January as well, it is that sense of sort of new beginnings, new chapter, new hope as well. So if you can tie, it was always good to have a campaign that you can tie thematically into a seasonal change, for instance, or something like that. So essentially, it's got, you can incorporate some imagery into that as well. Like I say, it might be some slogan you can build around sort of the new year, new move, or something like that. Something better than that. Obviously, that's something that's just off my head. But having it's always great.
Yeah, I pitched this right at the beginning as, putting yourself in 2025, January, let's go. But it doesn't necessarily have to start in 2025. Is that right, Lois?
Yes. So one thing that I think a lot of firms overlook is that aspect of building anticipation. So by January, you're kind of in the thick of it. A lot of people are already in the thick of it by January. So I think it's best, I really do advise it's best to build that anticipation maybe right from December, start promoting the campaign in December, start kind of drawing people's attention and their minds to the fact that your firm can help right from December. So when it's January, they already have your firm, at the back of their minds. They've come across your campaigns a couple of times, across your content a couple of times. Subconsciously, your firm is basically registered in their brains and on their minds already at that point. So building campaign is very important. You can do early announcements to inform clients about the services and even special offers you might have as well, because who doesn't like an offer, right? Who doesn't like a discount? So, you can start announcing that from December and start, planning towards that. And also you could create a countdown as well, maybe on your website, on your social media platforms, to kind of generate that excitement and engagement with your clients. So, yeah.
Yeah, so brilliant points there as well. I'd like to add, I think as well, if you have a newsletter or you do any type of email marketing at a firm, get that email out right at the beginning of January, or on the 1st of January, even if you have to schedule it for the 1st of January, when you know that your clients are going, oh, new year now, maybe we'll start looking for a house, and then hello, there's an email in the inbox.
See that immediately.
About conveyancing. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. There's been some really useful and excellent insights. And I want to sort of emphasize to our listeners and viewers that both campaigns provide an excellent opportunity to reinforce your brand identity while addressing your clients' needs. You don't have to basically you don't have to reinvent yourself every time you have a new campaign. Remember, effective branding requires consistent messaging and visuals across all touch points. Right, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this session insightful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at marketing@qualitysolicitors.com. And don't forget to visit us at www.growwithqs.com for more resources on building a strong brand identity. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye for now.